So I'm Courtney. I use she, her pronouns. I'm here representing the Flourishing Families program. I'm from the Center for Psychiatric Rehabilitation, which is a community center in a lot of ways, but also a research, training, and services center. I forgot to say one other thing. Welcome. The door stays open. If you need to come and go and others join us, that is okay with me. So I want to let you know, hi, welcome. That the door stays open and everyone's welcome to join in when they're ready and it feels right. So the Center for Psychiatric Rehabilitation is, I'll tell you a little bit about it. I could talk about it for a long time because psych rehab is a mouthful, but it's really cool. It's housed at Boston University. BU, or Boston University, is a center to many sort of community serving, or community, I think of it sort of like a global community. So we work with you. We work in Allegheny, we work in upstate New York, we work globally. We have a global partnership with lots of providers, organizations, colleges, and universities. So on the screen right now, if you'd like to scan, is the QR code to what we're going to talk about, the Flourishing Families program. And if you're like me and like to do a couple of things at once and plan and organize and map out how I'm going to take what I'm learning here back with me, please feel free to scan it and snoop around at what the Flourishing Family program is, what it is included in it. Our plan is, I'd really like to start off with the values that I hold in this space as in my work with families. What brings me to the family programming, I'd like to just give you background on that so you know who I am and where I'm coming from. But I'd love to tell you about the Flourishing Families program, some program evaluation data we have, and what we can do with it. I really warmly welcome your input on this. I think it's got a lot of potential to grow, but it needs to grow organically. So we need to know, anyway, I'd like your input when we get there. Also on the screen now is another QR code if you would like to scan, and that will bring you to my LinkedIn page, actually. I'm so worried that because I don't have business cards anymore, that there will be like missed opportunities for us to connect offline. We are really big partners in knowledge translation, as in we've built something, evaluated it, we want it to be disseminated. We're a nonprofit organization at the center, so we raise our money and do our own dissemination work. That's really exciting to me. So if that's exciting to you, that's me. Give me a drop. We're using Whova too. That's another way to find me. My email and phone number are on there. And we're here today to talk about the Flourishing Families program. Flourishing Families, like all of our programming at the center, all of our person-centered programming at the center, is steeped in these non-negotiable values. I actually am going to switch mics again, sorry. This one isn't maybe as clear, but I need to move my body. I think I know that enough. So our non-negotiable values have really helped shape this program. And this, I feel like, tells a little bit of my story too, that we hold on to hope in our work with families, realistic optimism, that everything we do is steeped in finding equitable means for full access and fair access for people to participate in our work. Choice is at the center of this. Choice is at the center of our work, which is we help families maybe identify resources, build skills that are their choice, that will help them do the work in a role of their choice as well. That we're not saying in our work who you need to be, what goals you need to have. We, really help individuals identify what's important to them and pursue that. Personhood and recovery are at the center of our work. Personhood is acknowledging that an individual has their own strengths and goals and values. This is not to undermine group experience, but it is to also celebrate individual experiences. And recovery, of course, that it is possible. That we're, a lot of our work is steeped in changing the narrative that diagnosis does not predict outcome. We know this. And making sure that that message is out there, that recovery is possible, that we hold hope with people and for people to see that that happens. I shared with you, but if you were kind of coming in a little bit later, I'm Courtney. I use she, her pronouns. I have come to this work at the Center for Psychiatric Rehabilitation really kind of recently, actually. The center has been at Boston University for, welcome, over 40 years. It started as a research, training, and services center. So what this means is we all kind of have our work of listening closely to where there is a need, building something, evaluating it, and disseminating it. I started actually down here in 2014, so not too long ago, with a program called Nateo. Nateo is a full semester long program for students, young adults, 18 to 24-ish, 25, 26, who have an interruption to college. And we know this happens at a high frequency. Students take leaves of absence for lots of reasons. In particular, the onset of a mental health condition or a substance use condition can be a real interrupter to their progress. Nateo, for 15, kind of like a full semester, brings them through a simulation of college with same age peers. They do not have to be BU students or want to be or have any BU affiliation, but with 20 young adults come together and move through this class to help them maintain and build skills and supports to go back to school. Again, kind of steeped in our value of choice. If that's what they want to do, it might be work, it might be both, part-time work, part-time school. So for 8 years, I listened really closely to family members. And at times, I'll own this, at times went like this to family members, right? Because I'm trying to protect a young adult experience and this was their space and their program. And then I realized, what am I doing without bringing families to the table at an equal spot as all the other players at the table and their young adult? We know that most of the young adults we're working with, we're living with parents and caregivers and guardians. How are we helping them build the same skills and build their own supports and community for whole family thriving and wellness? So really, a lot of what we'll talk about has reached we do a lot of work at BU. We help a lot of BU families and students, staff and faculty. We do a lot of local work. If you've ever been to Boston University, kind of runs up and down Commonwealth Avenue in the city of Boston, long, stretched out campus, but we do a lot of work locally, local chapters of NAMI, partnering with organizations. And we've really moved into an international presence as well. Those are kind of the basics of who we are, the Center for Psychiatric Rehabilitation. I was mentioning earlier, for some, being at Boston University is a door opener. When I think of the young adults we work with who are on leave of absence, have the storyline that I'm going to be you matters. It's empowering. It's part of their story. For some, it kind of represents a tower of not like an institution that I don't want to be affiliated with. But it really has been a door opener in terms of developing this program and giving it a home. I like to think that this program, Flourishing Families, is one of a kind, given that it's some of its core components. It is really a very highly interactive program for the parents, caregivers, and guardians of young adults who live with a mental health and/or substance use condition. So again, for many years, kind of like 8 or 9 years, we've built out at BU a menu of programs to support the young adults. Full leave of absence programs, one-on-one coaching, classes, workshops, peer activities, peer programming, peer mentoring. And then we pivoted and kind of took all that and brought it to families and caregivers. It's really built on like kind of a tell, show, do model. It's comprised of, I'll tell you a little bit more about the composition. It's comprised of workshops, but also one-on-one support so that families get really high touch point, individual attention around what's important to their family, steeped in their family values, what is kind of like what's going on right now in the moment in their families. As I said, really quite person-centered, steeped in the families as a starting point, their strengths and skills. And it doesn't have a lot of focus on psychoeducation. You know, we help families connect with other entities that have, that do that really well, like NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, where they can learn about their young adults' lived experience. This actually puts the parent, guardian, or caregiver right front and center to check in with how they're doing in this. One of the co-founders of the Center for Psychiatric Rehabilitation, Leroy Spaniel, brought to light this idea of family recovery, that yes, there may be someone in the family who is struggling actively with a mental health or substance use condition, and it radiates and impacts the whole family. So how do we support all the people around the table who are part of that network or unit? We do currently offer ongoing support. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about this kind of compact 6-week or 3-month, however you're looking at it, program. But we do offer ongoing support to families who are in this program through coaching and community conversations. And for as long as I can keep it, the program is free, which is just incredibly helpful, with no insurance required, no BU affiliation needed. So I do hope that as you're thinking about this program, it may be for current families that you're working with, that you know, that you love for yourself. But also, you know, maybe there's something that you're thinking about bringing home and thinking about how something like Flourishing Families might kind of grow organically in your homes and communities or organizations. And I'll come back to some of these ideas about the materials that are included in the program. So again, this program is designed for the given and chosen family members, so parents, guardians, and caregivers of young adults. And I'm kind of thinking in the vein, young adult is really expanding in my mind, but I'll go 13 to 30, somewhere in there, of young people who live with a mental health or substance use condition. It's connecting the families who are in the program, and how they find out about it has actually been, to this point, through word of mouth. A neighbor, a cousin, a family member took the program. NAMI has been a great proponent of sharing. We're kind of promoting on social media. We have some secondary and post-secondary mechanisms that, you know, families have found out about our work. And I think really most importantly, like anything else, kind of showing up and being in the community to cultivate the trust with families has been a great help. Showing up at the church, showing up at the NAMI meeting, and being available for families to meet us and grow trust. So at a quick glance, this program is a weekly program. It's about 6 weeks long. It's comprised of weekly 2-hour workshops where all the family members get together. It's currently held on Zoom, although I was really excited to host in person. I got babysitters for any young ones who are around, and food and coffee. But the families, including those who lived locally and close by, were saying it was kind of too much to coordinate. So, you know, really advocated for this to be offered remotely. So it is on Zoom. The families who are, I'll tell you a little bit more about the demographics, but just for a context, the 15 families approximately who come together are from across the US. There's a larger Massachusetts resident presence, but we've had maybe like 6 or so states and 2 other countries, China and Turkey, represented in the group, which is really nice to see. The coaching, as much as I feel like that, you know, the feedback we're getting from families is it's so rich to be around a space and share and connect with other families. The one-on-one coaching is really rich, where it gives families this chance to dive into, you know, again, like what's kind of really their the point of friction or dissatisfaction, the point of usually families who are in this program are probably not in acute crisis, though they may be, and what is the source of that, and what are their needs? These community conversations happen outside of the 6 weeks. So within the 6 weeks, they're the 2 hours of the workshop, the 1 hour of coaching. And families were saying, you know, we're not continuing to get together after this, and we'd like continued support. So we bring families together for the months following the program, once a month, to come together, share, connect, almost like a booster, you know, being together on what they learned, where they are, this kind of thing. This programming was designed in a lot of ways from the programming that I'd built for young adults, taking similar conversations about personal values, skills that families had identified as really important, and really just curated a whole course or experience around this. And the more I'm steeped in family programming and realizing what all of you are doing, the more I'm just like wowed by what's out there. I'd love to hear from you. I just want to pause for a minute and acknowledge what who you are and what you offer. Something similar, something new to Flourishing Families. Anyone want to share the work that they're doing to support families, family units?
Right now, I work for Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities in the state of Georgia, but I'm a certified peer specialist for parents. So prior to that, I was working with families directly and working with them as a peer support to the parents, generally the high fidelity wraparound model. Now I'm within the state, and so still, you know, supporting the peer workforce. So any tools that is really good that can help support families, that's really what I want to gather information about too, because as I support the workforce, it can go back to the families.
Right. So,
and I love what you were doing as far as having you know, creating a community within 6 weeks or however, I forgot how long you said the time is.
Yep.
But then they establish their own connection. So once this meeting is over, it's about sustaining that.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Sustaining natural supports and helping them find their other people, you know, was something I thought would sort of naturally happen in this shared space together. And we're learning it takes a lot of kind of curated support that families are saying, oh, I love what she said, but I'm not really, how do I ask her for a cup of coffee? Or like, and we have not built out peer support or peer programming as of yet. But that's we know peer support works. Scads of evidence. So right. 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 So how are we helping family members build sustainable, ongoing community connections and partners? One way is we bring them together monthly, sometimes with kind of like an expert panel. Always an expert on that panel is a parent, because they're experts in their own experience, an expert young adult representing that side of the story, maybe an expert provider who can answer some questions about resources and you know, frameworks, whatever it might be. But how do we sustainably support families is a great point. Building out their village. Who's in your village? Where is their satisfaction around that? How do we build it and maintain it meaningfully? That's great. Anyone else? Yeah, thanks. I missed the state. Did you say? Georgia. Thank you, Georgia.
Okay, I'm Carla from Nebraska, and we also do family peer support, young adult peer support, and parent peer support. But we started a thing called Wellness Cafe, and we started it primarily for youth, and it's this sort of a support group. And we asked a couple of youth to sit in on the planning and the development of that Wellness Cafe, which made it successful because it was what the youth wanted it to be. Time where they could share success stories, time where they could share what tools work for them, but also time to explore new skills, hands-on activities, and eat. eat always food, right? So then now we've expanded that to the parents. We started a parent wellness cafe, but we serve 44 counties in Nebraska and it's a big old rural state. So we had to go with Zoom as well. So that's kind of in its implementation stage as to the model of it, but we want the parents to be at the core of it. And then we started a parent leadership training, which also takes parents past receiving the peer support. Now, how do I give back and share what I've learned with others? So we have level 1, level 2 parent leadership. But what we were missing is that community ongoing after they finished the training. So now we started monthly Zoom meetings for that. And then every 3 months, like everybody get together in one place and do something fun together. So similar, but not as organized as yours.
So you've got the cafe, and then what is it called after this cafe, or is that the ongoing one? Wellness Cafe is ongoing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And share. Thank you for elevating that. This was not, I'm here representing Flourishing Families, but these were not my ideas. All of the skills building that goes into this program, all of the components were designed entirely by like 150 parents that I just said, can you just tell me what you needed then, what you need now, depending on where they are in their stage. I'm going to actually flip to a quick workshop overview that I feel like is really important. I'll go back, but I want to tell you that the skills that we're focusing on, I just learned a new one in that last, I mean, we should be talking about the zone of usefulness. Man, that was so yummy. If you could just jot down zone of usefulness, if you've not heard of it, that was such a great tool we just learned in another session. But some of the skills we do start off with their values. I am a parent. I'm a parent of a 4-year-old. So I'm not a parent of a young adult with lived experience. I do not walk that. I'm a family member. And so I carry some of that experience, and I've worked really closely, I mean, at the elbow in the community with hundreds and hundreds of parents during my career. But that's still, we still need the context that it's not my values that are going to move you through this. They're yours, and they're really, that's a great starting point. Some of the what we talk about right out of the gate is, how are you feeling? Really? Not like kind of the colloquial, like, hey, how are you? But like, really, how are you? Check in with what you're sitting with and what you bring to the interactions that are often combative with your young adult. I'm feeling frustrated. I'm mourning. I'm disappointed. I'm pissed off. I'm whatever you're feeling, and honoring that and giving the family space to also start to own some of their feelings. This might be kind of like your experiences in your work with families, but that's a powerful permission that I don't think lots of the parents and caregivers and guardians we work with feel they have. So it winds up being a real door opener to give them space for that. Helping them evaluate where there is satisfaction and dissatisfaction in relationships is a key part of the workshops. And ongoing. And to that end, when there is dissatisfaction, how can they mobilize? What is the skill or tool that will help them engage in the difficult conversation to invite change, or even to evaluate why change may not have been happening or isn't happening, or that's not set up to happen? Thinking about what drives change, that we have information, that we have skills, that we have self-efficacy, or like the belief that it can happen. And then we have that big one, is need. And when there's no need and things are comfortable, it's unlikely things will change. So giving them space to examine that in their own family relationships. And the relationships don't have to be explicitly with their young adult. Sometimes what's going on at home is actually compounded by what's going on at work, or with siblings under the roof, or with a partnership or a marriage. And we give them space to think about the ripple effect, again, that maybe the challenges their young adult is experiencing has on other relationships. We talk a lot about co-parenting, and I'm kind of reclaiming the word co-parent to mean like anyone who is partnered in the parenting process, which could be for some grandparents, neighbors, siblings, and not necessarily separated couples, but that people who are parenting together are co-parenting. And how is that happening in a way that's aligned in the same direction or not? We talk about in the class practices for self-respect, which is maybe like self-care, places and practices for restoring balance in these parents' lives. We talk about finding their own supports, ongoing community, help seeking, something we've not done a great job of. I think probably I'll just own that maybe I don't know the landscape, is helping them into their own peer roles, into their own peer specialist roles. We're exploring this idea of like, if anyone's familiar with This Is My Brave, is a storytelling troupe, people with lived experience telling their story. It was like kind of a la that, a family edition of families sharing and telling their stories, but helping them kind of shift away as they tell their story, away from shame and blame. And certainly finding resources is a high touch point in our work with families, whether it's, some of what precipitated is their students' leave of absence, connecting them with that program, finding immediate care. I know, just like going up and down these the hallway with all of the tables, I feel like that kind of resource coordination and helping them connect with other resources even outside of the state has been a great help here. I'm going to back up for a minute and just kind of hone in on the 2-hour sessions of what's happening during this time. We really, we've built the 6 weeks alongside the trans-theoretical model. This is the framework that guides change. So thinking of starting off with like contemplation, I'm not really sure how this is going to change. It's been this way for 5-6 years. I've said for 5-6 years, you can't use in the house, and it's happening. And I can't see how we're going to move past this, into planning and preparing and skills that really attach to that area, into action and how we take steps and engage in those difficult or courageous conversations, to relapse, being back at the beginning, starting over, whatever that might mean. And it helps to think about it in that framework, because it does promote the small sustainable changes that we make throughout the program, that families make throughout the program. As you would probably guess, on Zoom, varied modalities, being all together for bigger conversations is really rich. Popcorning it in a live, like everyone together and sharing, is effective. And the families also want breakout rooms, being alone together and talking, and finding time for that. So a lot of small group paired discussion happens. There's a lot of pause. As in, like, if I'm carving out 2 hours of my busy schedule for this program, we give them pause and space to examine, in the moment, what does this look like for your family? What is let me think of something, Dear Man. This acronym Dear Man is something that tends to pop up. It's derived from dialectical behavioral therapy. It's a tool that helps families prepare using the stages of the acronym to go into a difficult conversation. We ask them in the moment to take space and examine what would they say, find the words to a conversation they never had, to a conversation they need to have, to something that they would revisit and have again. That kind of those moments for individual exploration, I think gives families sort of like the accountability, the like we're together now opportunity to do some things that that maybe is more helpful in a group setting, and then talk about it with their peers. 100% of the families who participate in this program report the goal of connecting with other families. that's that's a great reason to think about the other ways that this program can build beyond like the 6 weeks of workshops, how they can continue to stay connected. Some of the reasons, as you might imagine, have included isolation, feeling really lonely, even with family members who do know about their young adults' lived experience, that it's really lonely, that they don't really understand or support it, or they're coming at it differently, or they think that we shouldn't be supporting our young adult in a certain way. There's real confusion around that. Shame that we have chosen to go this route to support our young adult, have drawn these boundaries, and there's disagreement across the family. Really just needing to feel understood and validated, as we all do as humans. I would say about a quarter of the workshops are dedicated to these breakout sessions to give them space for that. As you can imagine, maybe families ask for more. It's kind of like the delicate balance of like skills practice, skills building, and time to talk about it and connect. This is a snapshot of the workbook that all the families get, about a 50-page workbook that guides them through some of the exercises in the program. It coordinates them to resources throughout the program, and also kind of highlights the parents' voices who helped build this. We call them parenting pauses. It's really sort of like the underpinnings of the rationale for the program. These are insights shared by the people who were consulted during the creation. And here's an example of one. No one ever said it would hurt so much. So I knew it was going to hurt when my young adult transitioned out of the house and left, and there was a, grieving and change around that, but that I was especially worried about their wellness during that time made it hurt so much more. So how we connect families, when we are bringing in outside voices also to resources in the community. Probably like 5 pages of the workbook are just resources, legal resources, places you can consult for, getting documentation, securing financial means for your young adult, resources for the parents, really just like parent coaching organizations. NAMI, of course, shows up there as a resource, but some are kind of more local, and that care services, care organizations, and also educational organizations and programs for families specifically and young adults specifically, and then basic needs resources, that our families are, in fact, the challenges are compounded by food insecurity or housing insecurity, and connecting them with basic needs resources. Totally crowdsourced, families saying this has worked, I liked this has been helpful. A bit on the coaching, and I'm curious if anyone here outside of peer support is familiar with a coaching model or does that, coaching individual families. Yeah, will you share? Thanks. What does it look like? In what state? How do we get it?
So I have been doing some parent coaching in Connecticut through an online organization called Peace at Home Parenting. And we offer various types of parent coaching. It's all done over Zoom or the phone. In the rare case that someone's all in the state of Connecticut, will meet in person, but it's really what the parent needs. It could be a single 1-hour coaching. And typically we ask them what issues they're having with their children, mostly around mental health challenges, mostly younger children, early elementary, preschool. And we offer a variety of recorded parent education classes from 15 minutes to an hour as well. So we'll go over what skill building type of coaching sessions that are, parent education classes that are recorded they might want to go to. We really do a lot of listening, and we do a lot of connecting them to resources that are available for free online. And we do a lot of trying to help them recognize that their stress and their anxiety is having an impact on the way that they're able to be present in their ability to parent. And that is 9 times out of the 10 when I've done coaching sessions, it is around anxiety that the child is having, especially during COVID, going back to school. And I talked to the parent about their anxiety, and it turns out that it's kind of spilling over. So we do a lot of the reflective, the motivational interview style, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's good. Peace, like PEACE, Peace at Home in Connecticut is available outside of Connecticut. Almost 100% online. It sounds like you're listening and responding to parents and caregivers, helping them see where they bring energy or feelings into relationships that drive their young ones' feelings. Really interesting. Again, I'm thinking about like the zone of usefulness and what anxieties about what? Anxieties because we are so connected as parents to outcomes. Doing well, going back to school, not missing school, belonging, right? Really well-meaning things, but that it can really drive fiercely how we do or don't do. And really, honestly, what we're talking about in Flourishing Families is just the relationship. It's really, it's not necessarily about outcomes, but just how you're connected to your young one and are there for them, which is really complicated when you've got big feelings. That's really complicated to be empathic after a full day and feeling disrespected by things that are happening under the house and be there with them. And we know empathy is really effective. So how do we do both? How do we, support families and cultivating those skills? Anyone else doing coaching or know about a coaching model? Parent caregiver coaching? So our coaching model happens once a week for an hour, at least. It can kind of spill out. The hope is that we are available to coachees, the family coachees, in between sessions with texts. So I knew this morning that a family was having a difficult conversation. I might check in with them later by text. How'd it go? Or just sending energy. They know they can email. They keep the chain of communication open so that there's consultation happening between the meetings. It's exactly what you said, Dana, reflective. We're with them. That sounds hard. Inviting questions. Where's there room for change? Helping them notice and draw their own conclusions. It's not, again, my work, my values, it's theirs. Really productive. It's meant to be action oriented. Coaching's meant to kind of get things off their list. These are busy people who are in the middle of a lot of juggling. So how do we help them check things off their list? I've really been meaning to find a family therapist. I really think it would help us, someone who's faith-based, who lives in, Boston. It's really kind of specific. So we help them find it in the moment. I think sometimes that the 5 pages of resources at the end is a little bit of, is not useful because it kind of gives families just more things that they feel I'm using air quotes, should be doing. I should be finding someone. So we do it together, elbow to elbow in the partnership. We use the 8 domains, which is to say that, we're not focusing necessarily entirely on their emotional wellness. We may get to vocational wellness and how their personhood is being dissolved in their family dynamics, how they miss being, they've not been working and would find value in that. So maybe we work on something related to helping them find connection as it relates to work. The SAMHSA's 8 domains of wellness kind of hit on other areas that are really important, thinking about whole person experience, spirituality, finances. So really nothing's off the table when we're coaching. It's very collaborative, really coactive, driven by the families, but really coactive. And some examples of what we might do across the domains is thinking about how we're cultivating awareness, let's say around like emotional wellness, cultivating awareness around what it means to acknowledge negative realities, helping families do that for them, but also giving them the tools that they can do that for others as a way to empower and not fix what might be going on. Environmental things, as I said, maybe like securing basic needs, as it relates to some like intellectual wellness, how the family is doing their planning or prioritizing. Planning might mean around, I feel like there are so many things that need to be done that call my attention every day when I get home from work with all the kids and everything, everyone under the roof, that I shut down. So like planning really practically, like coaching's meant to be very practical. So what's one small thing and how do we do that together? And how do we create accountability around it? So very much so the coach is an accountability partner around building out their village, helping expand their social connections. So connecting them to other networks or resources. And so much of what it seems to come up in our family support work, helping families engage in difficult conversations out of need, out of mutual respect, that they get to express their feelings, that there is room for them to ask for things that they need, including upholding boundaries for their personhood and wellness. We started a kind of like segment called Family Voices, and these are alumni of the program who've curated like a 5-minute video that becomes part of a library called Family Voices, and we air these family voices during the sessions. This has been a favorite, and I feel like it's really low investment in terms of programming, is to just kind of capture the family's wisdom. You know, it might be around when to step in or step back as a parent or caregiver. It could be around specific self-care practices. You know, an alum of the program is also a provider, and has shared kind of tips for mindfulness for when things get really heated and crisis is bubbling up. How to partner with providers, get what you need from care providers, and building community. We're small and new. We've had 25 participants go through the program. These have all been, and I'm very aware in these demographics of where there needs to be change and growth. They've all been given parents of young adults that have actually hit this full range, 13 to 30. The participants have predominantly been heterosexual, female identifying, white, married individuals who are in the helping professions themselves, and they're mostly in the US. We have had an online format, as I said earlier, just kind of allows for a greater reach, but also for the family members who live right down the road, it's just easier to coordinate. It's easier, it's more accessible. We have noticed an increase in male identifying participants this semester or this term and session. That has really kind of, it's good to see. It's really nice to see an increase as well as partners joining. So versus like even when someone is in a partnership or marriage, it typically has been just one of the individuals at the table in the Flourishing Families program, and we've increasingly had the couple join, which is helpful. Some just data really quickly. We've seen these changes. Families are reporting normalized perceptions of their family experience. Increased sense of connectedness, and that's for themselves as individuals. So being a part of a community and feeling more like sense of being understood and belonging. Decreased sense of isolation. Here's a great one: increased capacity to say no, and decreased feelings of guilt and stigma around their experience. So just hearing other stories, as well as decreased fears and feelings of intimidation. You know, many families have found it beneficial that the resource coordination has been available to broaden what they know, who they know, what they can access. Decreased stress and anxiety was also reported, as well as some increases in hope, empowerment, and acceptance for where they are. this might be this. I've heard two things so far in the feedback, all the feedback we've gathered by interviewing. We've had one-on-one interviews with all of the alum of the program. Improved communication with their loved ones is like a priority and kind of what is on our minds as we think about the objectives of the program. And the other was a parent who said, you told us in the beginning you were really going to focus on us, and you did. And for a family member to feel that care and support felt just the right where we wanted to be, and was great to hear. It was great feedback. That's important to parents, because where are they getting it? That's the loud voice, the judgment. Yeah. The judgment that the things aren't going well, that it's not under control. They're heard. And they can celebrate things like, he offered to do the dishes. He didn't even do them, but he offered. You know, and for families to share amongst each other, like that developmentally, I can't say that with my friends who have kids of the same age, because it's not understood. They don't understand where I am, and that this is worth celebrating. Yeah. Again, as you're thinking about families you're working with, yourselves, thinking about how this program might be disseminated and shared, that's kind of one of my next steps. I really hope that this program continues to first start with the family partners in communities based on their needs. You know, as we think about taking this model and supporting like kind of groups or niche families, we were approached by a local high school to support their families, by a college to support the families of their young adult student athletes. So kind of thinking about different populations and those needs, how do we start first with them being the voices of building and modifying and curating like a meaningful Flourishing Families? As it relates to just kind of this free open enrollment program that we offer, diversifying the people who are around the table, and certainly moving into an evaluation period for the next year, we will formally assess this. So kind of looking at the sense of empowerment families feel, hopefulness, how they feel about their ability to parent and the confidence they have or self-efficacy they have. A big piece is how, you know, families come in saying, I really just want to be able to care for myself along the way too. So how we build that. And we will do that through formal, like kind of tools and inventory of assessments, as well as the continued one-on-one qualitative interviews and conversations for that open feedback. The hope is to disseminate and evaluate this, possibly hand in hand. And at conferences presenting on this, I think, you know, there have been organizations or, you know, community clinics that say, I need this, like I need it now. Can we partner now to bring something like this? And the answer is yes. So if that's interesting to you and something you hope to do, again, that's a link to that QR code is a link to me to start a conversation about how to move this program, or how your people you work with or people you know might access the program. And I want to open it up for any ideas. I actually really like feedback about the program, things that you're doing in your work. Peer support is a big part of this. There needs to be a prong of peer support and an alum coming back, not just to tell their stories, but to be in it and guide the conversations. I don't think we're quite there yet, given that we are new and have had just 3 cohorts, but that feels really important. Questions? Yeah.
For families to be involved in this program, how many family members need to be brought into it? Like, is it like 2 people that can, is it like the entire family? What does it look like for family? Like if I was a family and I said, I have 3 kids, but only 2 of them are willing to go into the program.
I'm so glad you asked. So the Flourishing Families program is just for parents and caregivers. So your kids may love this and they might not know about it. They may be in disagreement with it. It's for you. It's just for you. We have had a couple of families say, can they come into coaching? Like, I feel like if they could hear you say that and not me, everything would be smooth. And that's not really the goal. The goal is to empower the parents with the skills and the resources to have the conversations with the students or young adults. So we've not had any fashion of young adult participation. What's really interesting is we have this whole other young adult programming. And for the first time, we're seeing young adults here in the young adult programming and parents in the family programming. So they're both coming together under the same roof with the skill of empathy, and the magic starts to happen, where they know what's going on and both have a kind of a changed way of communicating, that can open some doors for healing and building a relationship. But this is just for parents and caregivers. 3 people, myself, my background's in special education, a licensed social worker who works at a community clinic, and a medical doctor, actually, who is an intern at the center. So one of my colleagues at the center. And then coaches, there are a handful of coaches outside of that. We all get together and train around uniformly coaching. We all get together for supervision around what we're seeing in coaching and how we're responding to families. But we do have an eclectic background. One of the coaches is a JD, which is great, a lawyer and a divorce attorney who's really good at facilitating difficult conversations. But also it can be a great touch point for some legal issues that come up. Families need consultations around the justice system or whatever it might be. And some of the eclectic background includes, providers who are licensed or people whose backgrounds in psychiatric rehabilitation. Yeah. Great question. Like, kind of what happens in the workshops themselves? Those are all the topics. The workbook brings us through the class. Like, it's kind of like a module of exercises and activities that kind of are linked together. So we might talk about, when I think about getting started and priming families, like they go inward first. So this whole first workshop is just about them, how they feel, their strengths, because we're here, so there's something good happening. Finding the strengths, their personal communication strengths, like, well, I am good at things, helping them name that. Again, values and just some primary things. What's really important is that in the popcorn, bigger group discussions, and sometimes in the breakout rooms, if they don't want to talk about what we're talking about, then we follow them. We are not the content. They are the content. It's about them. So the first workshop, this term, 2 parents came out of a breakout room for 10 minutes, and one of them said, we didn't talk about what you said. I said, so you just talked to each other. That's great. This isn't mine. It's yours. So maybe you just needed to talk and not do the exercise, giving them space. And I think they were surprised by that, we give them prompts and ideas to connect, but maybe that's not meaningful right now. There was another question. For the young adult Nateo program, yes. Flourishing Families, this whole program is for parents and caregivers, but many of their kids have had interruptions to school. Oh, success is a weird word. But yes, yeah. Okay, so Nateo was my first baby and grew that. Nateo has gone through now, is it 18 semesters? So we've graduated over 250 young adults from probably 170 some schools, meaning they took a leave of absence from very varied experiences. The return to school and or work, because that's really important, though they mostly want to go back to school, some don't, and that's theirs. The return to go back to school or work the next semester after Nateo is high 80s. And the reason I don't know what to do with the word success is that that's great. That's what we want to have happen. And some students have an interruption. We know recovery is nonlinear, and that interruption usually means they're back in one of our programs to get back to school again. Or maybe we have a robust peer mentoring program for young adults, are involved in peer mentoring as a way to get back. Success, I would measure, we do a pre and a post for the Nateo program. So we've seen across all the semesters statistically significant improvements across their hope, overall psychological well-being, academic self-efficacy, like I really can go back to school, their social connectedness. That's the success, right? Like the change, totally. Like what is different? What feels different? It is incredibly cathartic for the young adults, as we know, being around a table there are 20 students who go through the Nateo program. It's usually from 20 different schools. And to go through that process together, building readiness, healing, what happened, making sense of what they want, who they are, is really, really helpful. Yeah. Yeah, how are families like kind of eligible? I'd say the number one inclusion criteria is just that you know what we're going to talk about and do, and that feels right for you. That's where you are. Because I can tell when a couple has signed up and just one of them knows what's going to go on and the other is kind of brought along, there's friction, it's palpable. That the families can make the time commitment to the extent that's possible. That's it. Just that you know what we're going to do and that you are actually a parent or a caregiver or guardian. I've had a couple of, can I just like kind of watch what goes on? No. We don't even record what we do in the workshops and our conversations. Great question. Like how is it, how do you know it's good for you? We talk about it. I share kind of like an at a glance of what we'll cover, talk about the format. And yeah, let the families choose. From the family. Exactly, yes. To participate, I do ask that everyone completes maybe like a 15 question Qualtrics survey. So like an online survey that asks them a little bit about demographics, their goals. So I make sure that we are really aligned on this, or that if I've missed something, that we're building it into the program to respond to their need. Their worries, like what is uncomfortable about this for you? What are you worried about? What are you excited about? Some of the worries are like, look, I've done everything. This is not our first go around, and I doubt anything will be different. We're kind of at a place of hopelessness and meeting them where they are in their hopelessness. You know, we do find out that by survey. There was a question back here and then here. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm, mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I really think so. Lots of the families in this cohort, this is really different, are also being coached informally or formally by their young adults, like residential program or another community organization. The more, the merrier. And that's determined by the family. So it is not, we don't ask that they exclusively participate in our program. No, great question. Yes, yep. Mhm. I've capped it at 15, given that some of the families are now coupled and on two different Zoom screen. They're on, it makes it feel bigger. It's so important to create space where they can actually be heard and give space for that. If 20 Nebraska families call this weekend, I really think we'd talk about building another section of it. We've got 2 mapped out for the spring that I'm guessing will probably be 15. I'm fine with flirting with 20. But I also am preparing, while we're navigating, is this working and evaluating it, preparing all the staff to be ready to teach it, and build out the group of facilitators so that it can be. Maybe we're talking about, if it is 20 Nebraska families, bringing it there, having it grow here, that would be cool. I'd love that. I'm not afraid of the floodgates opening. Which is why I'm here in Oklahoma City. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. You take this out. Yeah. I keep coming over here because I'm so used to like a laptop being here. I'm just going to do a quick check of the time. We are good. Thanks, Michael. Any other thoughts, questions, add-ons? Yeah, please. Yes. Yeah. 2 different teams. We've kept that really, and over here. Totally different. Yeah. Yep. We have our college coaching program is mostly for students who are in school, but we have coached high school students and we have coached students who are not actively in school. It's kind of the same at the elbow, practical support around skills building, supports building for success and satisfaction. Yep. Mhm. Mhm, mhm. Right, kind of like a wraparound model for a whole family system. What's optional for everyone to be able to join in at an entry point? There's a class that we teach in the college mental health or young adult realm called Healthy Relationships. That sounds a lot like that. What do I want in relationships? Relationships with family, peers, partners, intimate partners, whoever it might be, and helping them build the skills and supports to do that. Yeah, that also travels to Mississippi or wherever it needs to go. I know it's late. I'm going to wish you a peaceful night and safe travels home if you're going home today or tomorrow. I'm going to just hang out here if there's more you want to ask or chat about. And I thank you for joining on a Friday evening. Thank you.